Hi, it's Kris and welcome back to the Apartment Dealer Show. With me today, of course, I have my partner Deepen, Shah, and we have Mr. and Mrs. Renella. Mr. and Mrs. Renella are investors of multifamily properties, have experience in both Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties. And we've invited them in here today just to share a little of their story with you. We're going to walk through a 1031 exchange that they recently completed. And again, just give you some sense of real life investing given market standards of today. So Mr. and Mrs. Renella, thank you for agreeing to this.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you.
Looking forward here.
Now, of course, we first made each other's acquaintance at one of our educational luncheons that we host for landlords. And prior to that, I didn't know you, you didn't know us, but that's how we became acquainted. And post that event, we initially met because you were in the process of selling some commercial property and had been given, we'll call it, some bad advice in terms of how title was held. You had partnerships and what have you. Luckily, we were able to share some strategy with you. And we weren't involved in that sale, but that helped you through the sale. And then we represented you when you purchased the multifamily property that served as the exchange of that.
Absolutely, yes.
And we won't focus on that transaction. More so, we'll focus on your most recent transaction because that was a little bit more difficult in the sense that you were selling 3 different locations. And we had to, given 1031 exchange timelines and what have you, couple the money together and then land on the right square in terms of, the next purchase. And of course, that all came together and we're gonna get there. But I'm sure the viewers are interested. How did you first get your start in real estate investing?
Well, when I came to this country, I did with my sister and I was paying rent every month. And I go, wow, the guy will collect 6 rents. And I go, wow, this is a business, Let me see. And I got really interested on real estate. Then we got married.
And so we started with our first house, naturally. Really no big expectations to get to the point where we've gotten. We purchased our first house. We had some money saved up. And we saw that there was a lot of equity building up on our house. So the plan was, well, let's see if we could buy another one and invest in this. And that's how we started. From our first house to a duplex.
To
a duplex. I was paying $1,200 in mortgage for my first house. When we bought the duplex, I was paying $1,200 in mortgage for all 3 properties. So naturally, it was a little bit more in debt, but it was positive debt. And that seemed to spark our interest in the real estate business.
In purchasing that first duplex, and then, of course, you continued on, along the way, what was the overarching goal? What would have been the final destination where, like, hey, we succeeded?
To acquire more and more and more. Now, the first 6 units that we bought, I saw that there was more money because there were more units in one property. And I say, well, this is a good thing. Then I went for the next 6 units. And then I met you guys. And that's when I truly say, well, I think this is a good deal to parlay in instead of buying a duplex or a triplex or, multi-unit, multiply a lot faster than
I
just
think
a single.
The seminar helped us quite a bit.
A lot.
It gave us that understanding that if we have enough to buy a duplex and have the same amount of debt to pay all 3 of them, the next natural step would be to buy that triplex or the fourplex or the sixplex. as long as it's positive, there's really no risk, almost no risk. Numbers tell the story.
And just to say it, in one of the seminars, the thing that he really opened his eye was when you were saying if you owe 2 units and you increase the rent 50, it's only 100. But if you have 10, it's 1,000. So, that kind of like make him see more about the importance of the more you're always going to be, you have more opportunity, better off.
The more.
That.
Simple as that. The more.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I think a good concept too was that Carmen, that I had a hard time to understand was, and it's simple, is that we came across 6 units, and the guy wanted back then $1.3 million. We didn't have $1.3 million. We didn't have $1.3 million to buy these. I believe we had 500,000, whatever it was. And but Carmen said, "Hey, private lender, I could get the money, and we could buy them." And I said, "Well, how much interest is a private lender going to charge us?" And she said 12%. And I said, "No, I'm not paying 12%." Just that alone there shows where I came from. I'm not going to pay 12%. She had to explain to me that it's temporary. Those 6 rents that we would be collecting from those units would be paying that mortgage payment plus the 12%. And we're not going to make money the first 6 months. After the first 6 months, we'll refi with the banks, and we go positive, and we have a $1.3 million property. Mm-hmm. That concept seems such a simple, easy to follow strategy that, man, we were sold. Mm-hmm. We were sold, and as you see now, we were able to parlay our 3 properties single. They were single.
It was
single, double, and a
fourplex.
And a fourplex into a 15-unit property. So that concept,
awesome.
Awesome. It works great.
Yeah.
Now what we were spending on 3, we just spend a little bit more, and we have 15.
Mm-hmm. And the return.
Or 6.
The cash return, a big difference.
Oh, the cash return is huge.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
Now, I know Deepen just went through the numbers here. So if you remember, Deepen, the percentage increase in units and the percentage increase in income, net income.
It was essentially doubling the amount of units that you own from the get-go, but a 114% increase in cash flow, net cash flow from what you were collecting initially to where you are today, just from the 3 to the 15.
Yeah. So more than doubled the cash flow. And that's important. And as you guys learned at our event, for many investors, because they don't have, say, somebody that's, educating them, for lack of a better word, they seem like, well, it should be simple math. If I buy a more expensive property or a bigger property, that means my property taxes are going to go up. That means my property insurance is going to go up. For many of them, they own a property, there's no mortgage. And they're like, well, if I have to obtain a mortgage, I had these 3 things then: increased property taxes, increased property insurance, and a mortgage payment. How in the world could I make more money? It just seems like in simple math, that wouldn't work. And as we educate, landlords at our event, and as you are experienced firsthand, you've more than you increased your debt significantly, and that's no lie, but you've increased your net cash flow, and that's important. Net cash flow meaning after taxes, after insurance, after utilities, mortgage payment, putting some money aside for repairs and maintenance. Even after all that, you more than doubled the cash flow.
And I'm very happy and thankful.
And the other big thing is you guys. We like any successful business or team, it comes down to trust. And I know that we're not the smartest or the sharpest tools in the shed here. You need good, sound advice
Right.
in order to succeed. And people you could trust in any type of relationship or business or whatever it is. I think when we ran into problems, Carmen's go-to guys, hey, I'll give Kris a call. And if it was a legal problem, the exchange, whatever it was, we had the confidence to call you guys, and never once did you guys say, hey, can't help you. It was okay. If I don't know it, I know somebody that does know it. And that was huge. That's huge because it gives us confidence and and knowing that we're doing the right thing. And it's worked out.
Well, that was going back to the initial story of the conflict of how you held title on that first property. Is that we reached out to our attorneys. I thought I had the right answer, but I double checked just to make sure. And with the exchange with our accommodator, and obviously we got that all sorted out. But that's the idea. It's any investor, and so maybe they're outside our area of service, but wherever you are, you have to, I think what you're saying is you have to have a network of professionals that you can turn to.
Absolutely.
Because nobody's self-made. Everybody has like people they lean on, if you will, for information. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very comforting to know that I could give you a call and find out, get an answer. That's very comforting because it is. It's a different ball game. You're doing things that you've never thought needed to be done. Mm-hmm. When we had the 1031 exchange, we had never had one before. We ran into that because I had a business and we sold the business, and we needed to invest the money, and that's how that came about. Well, how do you do this? Where do we go? What are the rules? And you guys were so helpful in even helping us.
Make it easy.
Yeah, making it easy and clarifying things. Our real estate person at the time, when we sold the business, we sold the building we were in. He told us, don't worry about it. It's going to be straightforward. Everything's taken care of. I've done this before. Last minute, turns out that we can't get a 1031 if it's not in our names. It has to be in the.
It was company LLC.
Yeah, I was LLC. So the LLC could get the 1031, but we couldn't.
But
so
your guidance.
Right. When we, that's when we came. We asked your help, and you cleared it all up for us. This is what you guys need to do, and it worked perfect.
Yeah,
that's knowledge. Then.
So the second one, it was much easier.
So to that point, because a lot of, like I mentioned before, many investors are anxious about the exchange. Well, even if I'm not in a perfect situation, what if I sell my unperfect situation and I get into a worse situation? Or what if I sell and I can't find something to buy? What were your concerns or hesitancies? Because obviously, between the house, the duplex, and the fourplex, you only own these places for some time. So it begs the question, why hadn't you done an exchange prior? You could have. Right. What were some of the concerns, that you...
The time, because, when you sell something to do a 1031 exchange, you only have limited amount of days to complete the transaction. That was one of my concerns. But since we located the property that we wanted to buy, and the seller made it easy for us, wait for us to sell the 3 properties, that really, put me at peace. So if I were to say, that is one of the things that more concerned. Of course, the first thing is numbers.
Absolutely.
You gotta
have the...
People can lie, but numbers do not lie. That's my motto. So before you get into anything, you gotta do the numbers. If the numbers are correct, I don't think there's nothing to be afraid of.
What you're sharing here is, number 1, get informed. Number 2, focus on the numbers, not emotion, right? Because our emotions can be traitors and lie to us. Absolutely. If the black and white says one thing, good or bad, just no different than if, let's say, somebody was really juiced about doing an exchange, but then if they reviewed the numbers and it said, oh, this is all bad, well, then now you can't do it as much as you may want to if the numbers aren't going to work out. The vice versa can be said.
So now, having gone through the exchanges, multiple exchanges from the first one to now the one with your 3 properties, what advice would you have for some of the other investors that are contemplating doing the same?
Not to be afraid. First, they need a good team to achieve, Don't be afraid. Numbers don't lie. And I'm going to say that 100 times if I have to, because they could be losing an opportunity. It is scary when you're almost done paying properties and then sell to buy something that is going to cost you more. Oh my God, no, why? I'm going to start all over. No, don't be afraid, because on the long run, that's the best choice you could make. Multiply, multiply, multiply. If I could say, they are not making more land, so buy whatever you can. That's it. That's it. Don't be afraid. You have to form your team of, lenders, realtors, handymans, inspectors, lawyers and stuff. When you have that team and you analyze everything and numbers are right, you shouldn't be afraid. It's okay if you start all over 30 years long. You're not taking it with you, So don't be afraid. Just do it. Just do it. Don't lose the opportunity.
Yeah, that was, I think one of the key things that you said is the team. And like I said before, trust and knowing where to get the information is one of the most important things, because we didn't know until we actually were involved with it.
What I like to say is these buildings, they're just bricks and sticks at the end of the day. We own them for the income because the income is going to do X. And everybody's X is a little bit, different because we all have our own investor story. But for you, it was freedom, retirement, and going this direction.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we still have kids, believe it or not. And we have to put them through school and leave something for them. That is another huge priority that Carmen and I had, was to take care of our kids.
And we thank you guys.
Oh, yeah, we really thank you guys for the help.
Because you guys have been, wow, I have no words, but...
honestly, it would be tough to be where we're at if it wasn't for your team. You guys were a tremendous push in the right direction. From that seminar to where we are now.
Well, it's been a pleasure of ours as well to work with you and go through this process. And, we look forward to our continuing relationship. Even if you stop here and let's say there's no more exchanges, we're still here, to assist however we can.
There's more coming.
Did you hear that, Jim?
Yeah. No, it's, and the other thing I'd like to emphasize is we're simple folk. We started with one home. I worked from 8 to 5. Carmen worked from 8 to 5. And we were able to achieve what we've achieved, so the dream is still there. If we were able to do it, you guys are able to do it.
Yes, for sure. Gotta try.
We were both immigrants. I came from South America. Carmen came from Mexico, and we're living the American dream.
Totally.
Yeah, the beauty of real estate and the freedom of our country, right? Well, thank you again. Thank you. I know, this can be a little difficult, sharing your story, never, been on camera, what have you, but we're appreciative. We know the viewers are appreciative. They, many of them probably can see themselves in your shoes, and you've given them some food for thought. And we look forward to, staying in a relationship together and being of service, however we can.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you
again. All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.